Hi everyone, my name is Samuel Okashisi. Thank you for joining me again. This is the Spirit of Freedom Ministry. And the last week I started a series which I've been sharing about my life story and sharing my testimony. You know, the book of Revelation 19:10 says the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And my goal is to exhort you, edify you, and comfort you in any circumstance you are going through, to let you know that if God could do that for me, He is still the same God who was yesterday, today, and forever. So that is what motivated me sharing this. And I believe you will be inspired and encouraged as I share my testimony. So last week, I talked about my birth, and I talked about how God brought me out of my mother's womb safely with all of the attacks of the enemy during the 8th month that I was in the womb. And now I want to talk about growing up. Don't forget, I was born in southwest Nigeria, to a city called Mushin in Lagos. Lagos is the commercial center of Nigeria, not the capital. Probably back then, it was the capital of Nigeria. But I was born in Lagos to a city precisely called Mushin, Lagos, which is southwest Nigeria. I'm from the tribe called the Yoruba, Yoruba. There are 3 main tribes in Nigeria. And Nigeria is West Africa, in case you don't know. Nigeria is West Africa. So I'm currently now in the United States of America. I've been in America since 2016, December. But when I was born in Nigeria, growing up, a little bit of things happened. Things happened that brought me to this place. So God moved in different ways with me growing up. As I was growing up, as a little boy, growing up in high school, college in Nigeria, and so many other situations that happened, and God has to show Himself. So I would like to let you know that living in Nigeria is a blessed country with so many wonderful resources. Unfortunately, the country has also had a sheer number of bad leadership that don't really care about their citizens. So sometimes Nigerians can appear as sheep without shepherds. Not just because they don't have shepherds, but they don't have good shepherds. They don't have good shepherds that really care about the sheep. So growing up was so difficult. If I should look back now, I would say I grew up in poverty. I grew up to a point where I will have to be sent back home because my dad lost his job and he couldn't pay my tuition, my school fees. So several times, I was sent back home. There are several times I didn't have transport fare from my home to the house, or sometimes I might decide to spend the money and walk almost 2 miles or 3 miles. It should be up to 5 miles going to school, or especially coming back, just because you want to pocket the money and spend the money. And there are times that you don't even have money for the transport fare. So this was the life I lived growing up. I lived in my father's house. In that same house, there was no running water for 23 years. My dad tried his best. He got the plumbing work done. Everything was there, but there was no well. He couldn't afford digging a well to supply water to all the plumbing work. So what we used to do is we would go to neighbors. Sometimes these neighbors might be far, probably like a mile. Some might be closer, half a mile or quarter of a mile. We would go with our container. Sometimes I would carry a big pan, of a big pan on my, 5 liters of pan, or sometimes jerry can, maybe 5 liters, 10 liters sometimes. I would go, we and my siblings, we would go and pay for this water, fill up the container, and bring them back and bring them home. That was how I lived my life for the 23 years that we moved into that house. from 1993 to 2016 before I left. Except if I wasn't in my dad's house. Anytime I was at home and we needed water, I am the last child of my father. We are 4 boys. I am the last. I'm the youngest. So, fortunately, of course, I had to help get water with some of my older ones too at the same time. So it wasn't easy, but I recall that there were times that I would be walking either from school or walking back home from wherever I went to because I didn't have transport fare. I would see the road so bad. The road would be so bad, muddy, especially during rainy season, in the summer most likely. That is May, June, July. It would be so bad. And I would see the people, trying to get a motorcycle. Motorcycle was like a public transportation, or even those that had their car, trying to drive through this very horrible road. The road is so horrible. It's the southwest side of Nigeria too, very horrible. And I would keep watching these people, and a kind of compassion would come from within me as if I wanted to cry for them. It now made me recall what Jesus did. Jesus alighted from the boat and he saw the large crowd. And the Bible said Jesus had compassion upon them because they were like sheep without shepherds. That is how I felt, even at that young age. Even at that young age, this was probably when I finished high school or when I was in high school. I would see people struggle getting the basic needs of life, even when I was in poverty. I was having compassion on the needy. I was having compassion on people going through that. So it was very difficult, very, very difficult growing up. And of course, even when I went to college also, there were so many challenges. I had 3 years delay before I could get admission to college. So when I finished my high school, I had 3 years of trying to get into college, either for associate degree, in Nigeria we call it national diploma, or even bachelor's. It was so difficult. 3 years. When I wrote exam, something will happen and it shouldn't go through. It was falling. It was falling through, and I couldn't. But during those 3 years, after my high school, I started associating with bad friends, and I began to smoke. I was introduced into smoking India hemp. I would smoke every evening and sometimes in the morning. I would smoke, and for like a year I did that. Thank God to a praying mother, because my mom taught us in the ways of prayer. So my mom taught us. I remember going to one prayer program that day, and I prayed. It was a vigil, a crossover night. That is from the 31st of December crossing over to the 1st of the following year. I can't remember exactly which year that was. Probably 2007 or so. So at that night, we prayed this prayer. And when I came back home, I had a dream as if I was in the bus, in the public vehicle I was going back home, and the vehicle dropped or stopped at the bus stop. So I was at the back window in the vehicle, and as the window opened, I was smoking in the bus, and I tossed the weed, or in India, I tossed it out of the window. And after that happened in the dream, and I woke up, and that was the last day I actually smoked. That it was after the vigil prayer that I had. So God delivered me from smoking India hemp, because he knew, Sam, I have something way more for you than the devil, than what the devil wanted for me. Even growing up too, even while in college, get in trouble here and there, and make stupid decisions. But in all, I knew that I had the spirit that doesn't like injustice. I have the spirit that tries to be like a voice to the helpless, voice to those who are weak. I would like, why don't you care for this person? I've always had that urge in me to care for those who are weak and to help those who are helpless. So I went through this smoking period and all of that. And that was during the delay too. I went to a prophet one time and I said, what is causing my delay? The prophet said, go on a 3-day fast. And I fasted for 3 days. And after that, what I noticed significantly that changed in my life, after that, my dream life opened up. I went to the prophet to get admission into college. What is delaying this thing? 3 years. But the prophet just said, go and fast. And after, what I noticed significantly was that my spiritual eyes were open and I began to fast. And I began to dream a lot. Began to dream and see dreams that come to pass. And then I remember going to buy my first book, dream interpretation book. At that age, I remember it was 15 naira in Nigerian money then. It was a lot at that time. I bought my dream interpretation book, which was written by a particular prophet. So during this season, it was a lot of challenges. Working also in a factory, soap factory, where you have to stir the soap manually in the heat, mixing up the chemicals together and all of that. Life was difficult living in Nigeria. I would compare living in Nigeria, for me, as the Israelites living in the land of Egypt, being oppressed, being tormented. I didn't say Nigeria is like Egypt. For some people right now, or even then, Nigeria is their own promised land. They are prosperous in Nigeria. Everything they did in Nigeria became mighty, became big. They had good name, great name, and successful. So for them, Nigeria might be their promised land. I've seen people that moved from Europe back to Nigeria, and they became better. Life became easier. But for me and my family then, for me growing up, Nigeria was like Egypt. Nigeria was so I would compare my story to when I was in Nigeria was like when the Israelites were in the land of Egypt. And coming out of Nigeria was the Israelite getting out of the land of Egypt, and God performing several things and guiding them through the wilderness until they got to the land of Canaan. I want to compare America for me now as the land of Canaan. And it doesn't mean America is the land of Canaan for everybody. It just means that is how God has planned my life. That is how God has purposed my life. Who knows what will happen tomorrow? Tomorrow he might say, okay, go to... okay, don't let me scare people. Anyway, that is what I would compare my life to. So my life has not been rosy. In Nigeria, it was great oppression. It was poverty. But in those times too, that was when I fell in love with the people. That's when I had compassion with the people. That was when I would imagine the roads being tarred. That is when I would imagine the hospital provided. That is what I would imagine my dad's house being fixed. That is what I would imagine life being beautiful for me and my family. That is what actually made me appreciate whatever blessing I have now, because I have lived in poverty. I dwelled in poverty. I experienced poverty so much so that every time when I used to walk, I walked the neighborhood because I didn't have transport fare, my friends would say, Sam, they used to call me Lake Condé, Sam, I know you know all the shortcuts in this neighborhood. The shortcut that you can take without going through the highway. The shortcut you can take that will take you to a distance of 5 miles. I know you know it. They used to make fun of me. Back then, they were jokingly, and that is the truth. Because I knew all the shortcuts that could take me a long distance because I did not have the transport fare. And of course, my mom also experienced that. Walking that long distance and all of that. So I understand what poverty is like. And when I see what God has done in my life now, it gives me compassion. And it gives me gratitude to God, because if God can do that for me, he can do the same thing for you. He can do the same thing for you. So I will try to cut this. I don't want the video to be too long. So this part is me growing up in Nigeria. It was not easy. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It was poverty, challenges, and all of that. But I will round it off here. I will call this part 2 of my life story. But it's just summarized. This is a story of years, years. But I will round it off here. Then part 3 will now be me processing the traveling to America. That was what I would call the part 3. What God did when the process was about to start, and when it started, and doing the traveling, and when I arrived in America. And the part 4 will now be settling and living in America from 2016 December that I arrived till date. So you will now see, so it makes it like part 4. My birth, growing up in Nigeria, the traveling process, and settling in America. Then you will now see the hand of God, how God, even using the challenges we experience in our lives to prepare us for the goal ahead, for the destiny ahead. And now he has given me a beautiful story, so much that I can share it to you, and you can be comforted, edified, and exhorted. Even when I was in college, I thought I was doing private mathematics tutor. While in college, I'll be moving here and there from house to house, walking different miles just to go teach mathematics at their houses to support myself in college. I've always been an hardworking person, even though I trusted God for his provision, but I don't have a dependent mentality. I don't depend on people to always hand it over to me. I believe with the grace and the strength that I have, and the wisdom and the grace of God in my life, I should be able to provide for my needs. I feel bad when I have to ask people for help, but it's something God is working on me with. And I just want to share this to encourage somebody that wherever you find yourself now, this is not the end. This season will pass, and there's a beautiful and awesome future ahead for you. So in the next video, I will share my traveling process. And after that, the part 4, which will be the last one, will be me living and settling in America. Since I got here 2016 December till date. I will try to summarize it. Thank you so much for your time. I love you. Bye for now.